Hey, what's up everyone, Morey, Croson here, and today we're going to be breaking down the Diamond League 100 meter from this past weekend in Paris, and we're going to start the video right now. This is the newest edition of the Performance Lab.
Reach your individual goals.
We don't want to just talk about straight line speed. We also want to talk about your ability to be quick. We break down your video.
Let's make you into the quarterback I know you can become.
All right, so this is another great race that happened this weekend. We're in the middle of track and field season for sure right now. I mean, just weekend after weekend, we have a lot of great competition that's happening. Or week after week, we have a lot of great competition. This week we had Noah Lyles, Fernand Omanyala, Marcel Jacobs, Johan Blake, really a lot of great guys that were able to compete in Paris. And if you watched it, you already know that Noah Lyles ended up winning. So we're gonna go ahead and break that down, get a little bit more in depth into some of the things that he's doing really well. I think that him and Fred Kerley are obviously the two top sprinters in the world right now in terms of what they've just been able to consistently do with their performance. With that being said, we'll go ahead and hop into this here. And what stands out is when we look to see the difference between some of these sprinters, and this is something that I talked about recently with quarterbacks too, is like you got to be able to understand and really own this, because we see a wide variety of different types of starts. Like we could see Johan Blake here, a lot more forward with his initial movement. I want to say this is Tobogo here, a lot more forward with his movement, where we have a lot more of a upward movement with Noah Lyles, Marcel Jacobs, Fernand Omanyala. In what I teach, I typically teach more of this type of movement style where we're getting those hips through and we're kind of allowing that chest to come up just to make it so then there ends up being more opportunity to get the knees up and therefore be able to cover a little bit more distance per step. But we can see Johan Blake does a really good job of being able to kind of shift a little bit more side to side, right? So if you're going to be more bent over, more leaned over, what you have to do is you have to be more effective at getting your legs to be able to land outside of your hip, just because that is going to be the best way to be able to still be quick and still be able to pick up range. Where when you're a little bit more upright like Noah Lyles is, then what you have to be able to do is really get a lot of height and be able to maximize your distance on each one of these steps. You're still going to end up landing, especially on those first few steps, with the foot a little bit more out to the side. You just really want to be able to work on that timing, make sure you're not spending too much time on the ground there, and really not too much time off of the ground as well, right? So he's landing at 6'8", talking about Noah Lyles, and then he's off at 8'4", right? So 0.16 in terms of foot contact time, and if he's off at 8'4", his other foot is right back down on the ground, we could say at 9'2", right? So he's 0.08 seconds off the ground. We see guys sometimes that try to reach too much outside of the blocks, and because of that end up not really being able to have as quick of a start, because you end up just with your feet too high in the air for too long, or both feet off the ground for too long. Where when you get closer to your top end, this one will probably be good. 0.4 is when Noah Lyles' foot comes off the ground, and then he's back on the ground at 1.6. That's pretty standard, 0.12 in terms of the time off of the ground. So what we see is, and we're even a little bit late with when that foot came off the ground, what we see is a lot less time spent off the ground when you're starting. And I think that's an important thing to be able to understand and an important thing to be able to replicate when it comes to really getting going with your start. Because, I mean, Noah Lyles obviously is not one of the best starters here, it looks like, in this position. Johan Blake really did a great job of being able to get out. We also see Marcel Jacobs in a good spot. Fernand Omanyala, he's one of the best starters consistently in the world. One of the things that ends up always standing out to me with Noah Lyles and how he's so good is he just gets so much range, right? So when we see that foot coming down and striking the ground, he does a great job of being able to get that opposite leg through nice and quickly, and he's still, and we could maybe look at this one, could be a little bit better. When you get the leg to be, and the hip to be perfectly straight, right? So his knee is basically right underneath his hip here. Okay, it's important to be able to see how high the foot is and how much bend we have in that leg, right? So it's very important to be able to really maximize the distance that you're getting per step, and the way to be able to do that is when your knee is right underneath your hip, where is your foot height? This one, his foot is not near as high. He does actually kind of a better job when he's in the 200 meter, but with the left leg, he does a great job of being able to get that leg all the way up and through. And I think a lot of that has to do with, I mean, obviously one is range of motion and his overall strength is important there, but he also does a really good job of being able to maximize the range of motion within the legs and within the feet. So like as his foot's hitting the ground, we can see the leg is fully extended, and he's in a bit of a externally rotated position. As he's landing, he gets full utilization of that external rotation. So he's using all the muscles from the outside part of his leg to the inside part of the leg to help him being able to transition off. That gives him the ability to really access all of the muscles necessary to really maximize his sprinting overall, right? His foot contact time is really, really good. I would say he might be landing a little bit too much on the outside, but he still does a good job of pulling. And then from there, he can stabilize and transition off the ground so quickly that that's what really helps him in being able to maximize his top end speed. And then when he's coming off the ground, he does that unique kind of thing where that knee is just so far inside. So in comparison to, and we've talked about this before, in comparison to how wide his hips are, he is able to, or he has, his femur is able to get a lot of adduction. So he's getting adduction to abduction here as that foot is coming and striking the ground, and that allows him to be able to really maximize the amount of force that ends up being generated, right? Because he's not just moving in a linear plane. I know everyone wants to talk about, oh yeah, we got to go from straight A to B, and we don't want to have any unnecessary movements. When you really slow this down, and this is why it's important to be able to watch this film and look at yourself and what is it that you're doing, and really be able to maximize this the best you can, it's like what ends up being the main things that stand out with you in comparison to some of these top sprinters, and what are things that you can continue to accelerate in. And a big thing that stands out to me is always like how good he does getting that knee through and knee almost across, and then coming and then striking back down from there, right? The right side doesn't come through as much, but it seems like with that right side, he ends up getting a lot more of like a lateral pull. He's very quick off of that right leg, right? His right leg is much more of the leg that is able to have a lot more effectiveness when it comes to turnover rate, is potentially more of like that vertical push type of a leg, where then this left leg ends up being a lot more of a horizontal push, where this right arm ends up pulling more straight back in comparison to where that left arm ends up going a little bit more out to the side. And really we can look at everybody and be able to look at these types of things and really be able to get a in-depth analysis and in-depth understanding of what is it that makes somebody really great when it comes to top end speed, when it comes to your start, when it comes to your drive phase, and it also gives us the opportunity to be able to really understand where are we going to need to improve. And this is where I really think that the numbers end up just being so helpful and so important when it comes to development overall. It's like if we can better understand from a number perspective how much time you're spending on the ground, how much time you're spending off the ground, how many steps it is taking you to get 10 yards or 10 meters or 20 meters or 60 meters or 100 meters. Now we could really break it down and isolate and say, okay, this is how we can get better. This is what needs to be really isolated, and this is what really needs to improve in order to really make it so you could go from where you are currently to a whole nother level within your overall development. That's why I continually make these videos, really to be able to educate you. I want educated people out there, because I believe the more educated the consumer, then the better the chance is for you to be able to choose one of my programs or use me as a coach or use the Performance Lab as a coach to help you in being able to get yourself from where you are currently to a whole nother level, or even just to be able to help you in being able to improve. At the end of the day, I do this because I love the text messages that I get of somebody saying, you know, I dropped 0.5 seconds in my 100, right? Or I got 0.3 seconds faster in my 40, or whatever the case may be, how much improvement they have been able to make. I get a lot of those just from people that just watch my YouTube channel, and you know, that gives me a lot of satisfaction, and that's why I continue to make these videos. But at the end of the day, the way to be able to get the most amount of improvement for you personally, it's going to be through utilizing a program and, you know, really getting specific into what it is you need to improve. I think you can learn a lot by watching these, but I think the more you can get specific in what it is you need to get better at, the better off you're going to be overall. So if that makes sense to you, you can go ahead and click the link down below. We have an option for you to be able to get started with our speed program. We have a couple different options actually for, you know, what we can offer. But the main thing is we want to be able to get you in something that's going to be able to provide a lot of long-term benefit for you as a athlete and really take your game to a whole nother level. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations, you can leave those down below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.